Okay, so recording started. So last week we went over the first part of PowerShell 3, how to get the users, and then loop through each one, checking with the if statement here on line 4. Let's see if they had anything in department or not. And if it was empty, we set the department to marketing. And then we printed stuff to the screen in green. Now to make the scripts look a little cleaner on output, a clear host command normally makes things look cleaner. Although if I play this, okay, yeah, it shows them all in green. So those are the ones that were already set correctly. I think the instructions wanted us to actually print out the ones that were not set correctly. So I believe that was the main thing that our one wanted, was to print out the ones that were set. So we really don't need this part 3. Let me go look at part 3 again. It'll cover part of the screen here. Where's my PowerShell 3 instructions? So I think that hides part of the screen when I have it over. So update your code and add an if statement to check if you have any users to set. If not, print to screen all users set. Otherwise, set users as before and print to screen all usernames and departments. So we want to print to screen. It says all usernames and departments. I'm going to say that's all usernames and So let's do both. We write host the SAM account name, and we want to write out the department, which would be blank. I'm going to do the same thing for down here. So if I play, we get to see all usernames and we get to see all of the departments. That doesn't answer the question yet on number 2. I'm going to go ahead and remove a department from Jane Doe. I'm going to blank hers out. Just make sure the script is still looking good. So if I play, we'll see all the departments that are set. And we see the one person that needed a department set. So I believe that's going to get us close to the one question. We want to print out all users and their department if we needed to set somebody. Otherwise, we only want to print to screen all users set. So if a user was not set, we should see the output. Should see all users and all departments is what the question was saying. So that looks good for that part. The next part though is add an if statement. If there's nobody to set, I don't want to see everybody on the screen. I want to see only all users are set, telling me that there's nothing to do. So there's our conundrum. I'm going to use a little cool feature here and just shrink this for each loop, because everything in the for each loop is working correctly. I take away somebody's department, it runs through, sets them. I play, nobody said it's printing everything to the screen. So that is correct. I'm going to go click this little minus right here and kind of collapse it down. I don't need to look at any of that code for the next part. I only want that to run if we need user set. So that kind of helps me out, shrink stuff up into one single line so I can ignore and not look at the extra code and get scared. So I've already seen several people answer this correctly in several different ways. If we look at the question 2 hint, I put in there about argument.count, or should have been like variable name.count. So to use that method, that little hint, what that I was talking about doing is on this line 3 right here, adding another pipe statement and adding a new command here to only grab users that need to be set. So if I add in here where object, and what do I want to look at? I want to look at the department object. Where department is equal to null. So if I just run that code snippet, it doesn't show anybody. So where the object department has nothing in it, show that to the screen. So there's nothing there. Let me go and blank out Jane Doe again. So she's been blanked out. If I run this again, notice she shows up. That user shows up. So where department is only pulling the users where they come up with a null value. So Jane Doe department, it's blank. It's the only one showing up. John Doe, all these others have a department set, so they're being ignored. So that right there was a neat little trick to only look at users that don't have anything set. I'm going to run the selection again, and now I'm going to show you about the argument count hint. So if I do $users dot count and I run it, it should have come up to a 0 or a 1. Let me run these together. Make sure I don't have to put department in there. Yep, I had to add department in there. Okay. So the user's department field, is there anything in it? I'll get it right here in a second. Of course, department is blank. What am I looking for? I'm looking for the users that have a blank department. If the department blank, then of course it's going to count up to 0. If there's a user shown, then it needs to be set. So I need to use the SAM account name instead. Let's see if this should give me a 1. So that gives me a 1. Why does it give me a 1? If you run this command, Jane Doe is found to have no department. If I count the number of usernames being shown, it's 1. So 1 name, and we get a count of 1. Let's go blank out somebody else, and it should go up to a count of 2. So if I blank out the administrator account and run this section, there's a count of 2. Let's see if I run this get command where the department is null. I now have Jane Doe and administrator at the blank department. So both of those show up. So what I'm counting is the number of users that have a null or blank department. That's where that argument.count came into play. So that's line 5 right there. How many users exist where that the department is blank? And I can use that in an if statement. If this number right here, if users.sam account is equal to zero, what do I want to do? So I open up a curly bracket. If there's nobody to set, what do I want to do? The question said you wanted to print a screen, all users set. Did it give us a color or anything? Didn't give us a color, just said all users set. So write host all users set, close my curly bracket. Else, if the count is greater than 0, I'll want it to do what? I want it to execute the for each loop. So I'm going to collapse it again to make it a little bit easier to figure out where my closing curly bracket needs to go. So an else always has an opening curly bracket and then a closing curly bracket. So collapsing down the for each loop made it real easy to figure out with everything expanded out. It makes it hard to tell where a start and stop curly bracket is. So if I close this for each loop, it makes it a little bit easier for me to see that my else begins and ends there. And this for each loop is what's contained within it. So this for each is what goes through and sets the department. So now if I play this, it prints to the screen the users that were needed to be set. They had no department. If I play it again, it says all users set. So that would be one possible answer there. If you read the question a little more exact, if we have to run down here in the for each loop, we want to print all users to the screen, including their departments. So if we wanted to get a little bit more exact onto this here would be a good answer. I would accept full credit on this turning in. But if we have to set somebody, and the question actually states, set the users before and print the screen, all usernames, it doesn't specify the usernames that are being set. It wants to display all usernames. I'd say the question only wants to display the usernames that were set. So to accomplish that, if I'll read it that way, only print a screen, the usernames that we had to set and their department, I can simply eliminate this section right here of code, the else, because if I'm only grabbing users with a null, it's never going to hit this point. I guess I could leave it in there just in case something screwed up and something came out here as green. It would mean that I was somehow pulling users that did not need to be pulled. So I could leave that in place. And this part right here, if I want to write the host, I want to write it after the set statement. It doesn't really truly matter before or after. But I can't just write $item.department because it's never going to pull marketing. The reason for that is the only time that we're getting the users up here on line 3 and storing it into this variable. So even though that we run this set and set the user department to marketing, if I try to print out the department field, this item hasn't been updated. This users hasn't been updated. It only updated here on line 3. So once I set it, it's still going to print out the same null value as before because I haven't went back and hit line 3. It's only looping from line 8 to line 14. So it's not going to see that the department has changed here on line 10. So I could just simply put quote marketing there and force it to show onto the screen. Let's see if that gives us what we're wanting. So I blinked out administrator. If I play, I should see administrator had to be set to marketing. That was kind of a manual string right there, but I think that more fully answers the number 2 question. And that kind of runs off the screen a little bit, but it's just equal to null right there at the end. So there's one possible answer of it. I've seen somebody else answer it maybe a little bit easier. I've seen somebody answer it more of a coding method in the last class. They're a coding student, so they used functions and looked more like somebody that coded a lot. So I did see somebody answer this differently. They didn't use a where. They did not use a count. They used a department. And a null. So they wrote theirs quite a bit simpler. So if department equals to null, then I got to collapse this down. If the department was null, they set theirs to where in that case, if there's null, we need to run the if statement. So they had theirs moved like that. So if the department come up to null, we needed to run our loop. If none of the departments were null, then we need to write all users set. Let's see if that works. So if I play all users are set, if I go blank somebody out, and I play, still saying all users are set. I may have to go look at their code. Their answer may not have answered it correctly. It looked like it would work. Department's still blank. Yeah, I'll have to double check their code. It looked like it worked, but I may be missing something that they had put in there. But this here method works. So I went in, pulled all users where the department was null. I counted to see if anybody was there. If the count come up to 0, then just print to host all users set because it found nobody with a null department. Otherwise, we look through each one and set the department. And in this case, we probably really don't even need this if statement. In there because we had already come up here on line 3 and already eliminated anybody that had a department set. So really line 9 and line 12 and 13 here could be eliminated out of the system and it still work. Let's go ahead and look at that, what it would look like. So would it still work if on this if statement, if I just completely eliminated it, and I eliminated the else portion. So let's go through the line by line again. So get users out of Active Directory, pull their account name, pull their department. If the department is null, then pull the user. So all users with a null department are stored into users. If users.sam account name, the count of it's equal to 0, all users are set. If it's anything above 0, that means they were found and need their department set. So we're come down here to for each user and item that was found, we set their identity, add the department to marketing, and we write their name to the screen and then end. So if I play this, administrator was set to marketing. If I play again, all users are set. So simplified the code a little bit more. Let's see, there's some other built-in accounts here, like guest. This weird default account. We'll go blank out several. That way our screen is pretty. So if I play now, It shows us all the users that we had to be set. And if we play again, all users are set because it ran correctly the first time. So that simplifies the for each just a little bit by adding this where object equals null at the end. So hopefully that helps out a little bit on looking through it. And I know a lot of y'all were emailing to trying a lot of different ways and spending lots of time. That's good. That was a good learning method. It's like I said, it's kind of like working out at the gym. You can't just go sit and watch somebody. You've got to go and try stuff yourself. You can't go set the heaviest weight. You have to start small and work your way up. So that's learning on coding. And nobody's going to be an expert coder, except for maybe some of the ones that are in coding class. They were quite quick to jump in and use lots of functions and a lot more coding style tech than I did. But you got to just play along and keep trying. Don't get frustrated. I don't know if you're hearing all those sounds. Apparently there's lots of people emailing me. So non-students. But yeah, don't get frustrated with this stuff. Very common to, work through. And when I did anything with coding in the in the past with classes, I was always about 2 weeks behind understanding stuff. So we would learn something, do something the next week. About the third week, I'd have to go back about 2 weeks and look over the stuff that finally started making sense and learn it. So I was always about 2 weeks behind. So don't feel bad. You got to just continuously work, and maybe if you go back and look at what we did in PowerShell 1, PowerShell 2, something like that, start making more sense to you. So what do we have coming up? Or what questions do you have? That's the first thing I should ask. Anybody got any questions? Crickets. Yay, Jared's still listening. I was thinking that everybody else, they just went to lunch, showing that they're still here. Yay, y'all are alive. Cool. I thought I'd put y'all to sleep. I sometimes get worried about that. So there's not going to be any more PowerShell labs. The last PowerShell is the presentation over PowerShell. So to look at that, let's let me change my share. Let me change my window size down some so it won't I don't know what size monitors y'all have. It's a new share. Let me change over to the browser. Okay, so there's my in LAN. So we're at week 15. You notice we're almost at the end. So week 15. Okay, so I'm going to do a Zoom meeting. I added Friday in. We don't have Wednesday because I expect you'll just need that whole time to work on your presentation. So the presentation, you can turn in a screen recording if you want. You can also, if you don't want to do a screen recording and you just want to share your screen and talk about it, you can do that too. You can also just submit a PowerPoint if you don't have screen recording. If you don't, for Screen-O-Matic, yeah, if you don't have a mic or something like that, some students that are going to be watching this YouTube, they may not have microphones and stuff at home to do it. But if you just want to come in and, you spent lots of time and you want to show off your cool code. I'm going to open it up Friday for kind of a question and answer. So you can either present Friday through Zoom, or maybe you're having some issues with your code and you want to present and go through some issues with what you're trying to do. I already had an afternoon student that we had to go through and fix. They were trying to use some functions and do the menu. So I had a menu YouTube under week 12 or 13, I believe. So they were doing theirs, kind of a nice, funny menu style. So I got them helped out. So we can do kind of everything at Friday if need be. If you need help with your presentation topic, I will be here. And then even like helping through, if other people are watching the help through, we consider that the presentation and get the 100 points on it. So that is an option. PowerPoint, explaining like the code that you are doing, showing up with Zoom and sharing. I figured out how that I can allow you to share your screen or share your code, and you can go through and explain. So you can either go through a PowerPoint or actually show PowerShell or Visual Code Studio and your code running. So it's kind of, with this not being in class, we've got lots and lots of options that you can do for your presentation. I've already had a few tell me they don't have a microphone and how would they do a presentation. So that would just be a PowerPoint. So do you have any questions on that? Cool. And then we'll probably also recover stuff about the final. Week 16 is the final week. And you'll have a couple of days. So if your remote PC is slow, you'll have a couple of days to do that final. And some of y'all, minimize that. So some of y'all think we're going to go ahead and fix up your PowerShell screenshot and submit today. So that's fine. Go and just add to your submission the screenshot, and it should show the all users set. And several people that aren't on today also, I think, has submitted only part 1 and not part 2. So if you're watching this, go ahead and submit your part 2 of the assignment. Y'all ready for the summer? I'm gonna stop.